really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was picked for
weeks. The ladies of The View treated Karoline Leavitt's astounding $800 million lawsuit as though it were some sort of stand-up routine. They laughed, scoffed, and literally rolled their eyes on live TV, acting as though it was just another dramatic stunt from a conservative trying to make headlines. However, look how things have changed behind the scenes. Rumor has it that some of the women are even pleading with Leavitt to let it go. Yes, you read correctly. The people who called it a joke are now attempting to make it go away before it blows up even more. What happened to turn their confidence into chaos at ABC and inside The View's own dressing rooms? Let's go back in time to when the lawsuit first surfaced. The atmosphere on set was one of cockiness and delight. Leading the charge, Behar slung major shade, stating, "Conservatives always play the victim," then hit him with the most over-the-top eye roll like she was on Broadway or something. With her arms crossed, mouth clenched, and loaded. Whoopi Goldberg hardly batted an eye, but she sighed sarcastically and muttered something that made it obvious that she felt the entire situation was beneath her, such as, "Please don't let this happen again, just another day," another fake outrage. Before Sunny Hostin, who is supposed to be the show's legal brains, quickly dismissed it.
I have to stop you with the camera, as I can see you. So do me a favor, don't pull it out again. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
It has no legs to stand on, she declared with complete assurance, as if she had already read the book's last page. There was no doubt or subtlety, just a flat rejection. The panel as a whole pretended that the lawsuit would end as quickly as a trending hashtag, but behind those stage smiles and teleprompters, things were simmering, and now they're boiling over. No one anticipated Leavitt to go this hard. No one anticipated the legal team supporting her to be this tenacious. And most importantly, no one anticipated that viewers at home would actually take this lawsuit seriously. However, with online chatter increasing and lawyers circling like sharks, those same fearsome voices from the table are looking much quieter off camera. This isn't just tabloid drama anymore. If the rumors about hosts calling her behind the scenes are accurate, that's not just panic, that's straight up fear, no hesitation, no second thoughts, just plain mockery, and for a moment it appeared as though they were actually correct. All of the major liberal networks, including CNN, MSNBC, and others, quickly joined the bandwagon and denounced the lawsuit as pointless, weak, and just another conservative attempt to stifle free expression. Legal experts continued to trivialize the case as though it was already over, but behind the bright studio lights and the forced laughter on camera, something quite different was taking place. Yes, ABC's legal team wasn't laughing at all, but the host continued to smile for the cameras upstairs, which was a full-blown crisis mode situation. Frantic emails and meetings. More panic? Why? Because they actually read the lawsuit, every page, every quote, every detail. And once the legal team had finished going through it, they realized that this wasn't just a loud headline grab. It was a ticking bomb. Insiders claim that ABC's lawyers were extremely concerned, and rightfully so, as the defamation claims were much more detailed than the ladies on The View, with receipts, direct quotes, and timelines to support everything. If even one piece of it stood up in court, it would be a legal disaster because it has no legs to stand on, she said confidently, as if she had read the book's last page without hesitation or nuance. Merely an outright...
Isn't it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
All of a sudden, this was no joke. While the hosts continued to crack jokes, the people behind the scenes were frantically hoping that this thing didn't blow up the entire building because it was a real threat that could cost the network hundreds of millions of dollars. At that point, ABC's legal team doubled down and prepared for a courtroom battle that could last for years. At that point, the atmosphere truly changed, and ABC executives began discussing something they had sought to avoid rather than dismissing: its settlements. Suddenly, behind every closed door were tight-lipped briefings, damage control plans, and late-night emergency meetings. The View hosts continued their "it's no big deal" act for the cameras, laughing and downplaying, but behind the scenes there was complete chaos. The same people who had previously rolled their eyes at Karoline Leavitt were now receiving intense coaching on exactly what to say on air, and their confidence was crumbling and beginning to show big time. The ABC legal team was in full stoop mode. This wasn't just another story that made headlines, Everyone in the building was aware that this litigation posed a serious risk, and there was a tense atmosphere in the locked secret conference rooms. ABC's attorneys were no longer making jokes, according to an insider. This wasn't some conspiracy idea made up for likes. We take all legal concerns very seriously and are dedicated to handling them thoroughly and professionally. It may seem refined, but in reality, we're in the thick of things. Leavitt arrived with real receipts. We are discussing official records and internal memos. Her legal team wasn't bluffing at all. They were locked in and moving as if they had nothing to lose, and they weren't even exaggerating when one insider from inside the building dropped the bomb. There's real weight to this, and they weren't exaggerating. The second ABC's legal team saw the lawsuit in its entirety, alarms went off everywhere, and executives were panicking because if it ever went to trial, it wouldn't just be about what was said on TV. It would open the floodgates. We're talking about private emails, backstage conversations, and unseen footage that the public was never supposed to know about.
For me, and sort of lived lives of dreams deferred and poured everything in me, and just my life, how I transitioned from college. I went to college when I was 16, high school when I was 12, the struggle of that, and my career as a federal prosecutor, and then how I found my way
behind closed doors. The top executives at ABC divided into two completely different camps. On one side, there were the risk takers and tough talkers who wanted to take it all the way to court, convinced that they could shut it down and walk away without a hitch. They were riding high on ego, thinking they'd crush it with legal firepower and PR spin. On the other side, there were the realists, who knew better because they'd seen how these cases spiral, how one leaked message turns into 10 headlines, and how quickly public opinion can change. They weren't trying to roll the dice. They wanted a quiet settlement, no court, press, or circus, just to cut a check, sign some papers, and bury it before the media discovered the true mess. Where were the hosts during all of this? They were still on stage, cracking up, tossing jokes, treating it like another crazy conservative moment, and one executive even spilled they were already making moves behind their backs. Yep, they weren't even clued in. While they laughed into the cameras, the higher-ups were already working around them, trying to seal a deal before things exploded, but the real shock hit when the whispers finally made it to the green room and word got out that ABC was seriously eyeing a settlement with Karoline Leavitt. Not a denial, not a public fight, but a deal. And just like that, the tone in the building started to shift again because if they were ready to pay, it meant she had something real. It sent shockwaves through the whole building. Whoopi Goldberg. The queen bee of that panel totally lost it. For weeks, she'd laughed off Karoline Leavitt's lawsuit like it was comedy hour, saying it was nothing serious, just another loud conservative looking for attention. But now, her own network was talking about cutting a check. Whoopi felt blindsided and betrayed, and she wasn't the only one ready to snap. The tension between the on-air crew and the top execs hit boiling point. This was no longer just about legal drama, it was about loyalty, pride, and who really runs. The show inside ABC. Things were on fire. She was furious, and this time it wasn't for ratings behind closed doors. She erupted during a high-stakes emergency meeting with ABC executives, saying, "Are you kidding me? We're actually taking her seriously?" Her voice sliced through the room like a blade. This wasn't just a lawsuit against Whoopi. It felt personal. She had carried the viewpoint for decades, holding it down through hit after hit, and every time ABC had supported her from cancel culture mobs to viral backlash, she had remained unaffected. Now, however, the network that had always had her back was considering folding and throwing money at someone she believed to be unimportant to Whoopi. This wasn't just legal trouble. It was a slap in the face and a threat to her legacy. And she wasn't the only one losing it, Joy. We built this damn show, and now we're folding over some stupid lawsuit, Joy. Bahar stormed into her dressing room like a damn hurricane, slamming her makeup bag on the counter so hard that it burst open, sending brushes flying everywhere. The anger in the room was unquestionable, the trust was broken, and things were falling apart quickly. She snapped her voice, shaking with rage. After all these years of loyalty, all the victories, and all the battles they fought on air, ABC was prepared to throw them aside like nothing, and Joy wasn't going to let that get to her. This wasn't business. This was a battle. And even Sunny. Holin, the composed legal brain of the table, was clearly shaken. Bahar was red-faced, pacing, barely holding it together, and the rage in her voice said it all. Her poker face disappeared, her law degree kicked in quickly, and she was frightened by what she saw in Karoline Leavitt's case because, as a former federal prosecutor, Sunny had seen all kinds of lawsuits. But this one wasn't just risky, it was airtight. She had read through the entire thing herself, line by line, transcripts, emails, witness statements, internal messages, and, worst of all, some of it pointed directly at private conversations they'd all had off camera, things they thought would never see daylight. If this lawsuit made it to court, every casual side comment and sarcastic joke they made backstage could be dragged into the spotlight. It wasn't just about fines or headlines, it was about reputation and legacy and everything they'd worked. 4 was suddenly on the line. The producers of The View put together an emergency piece at the last minute. The strategy: in the midst of a media frenzy, turn the script and make themselves appear like the true victims by pretending everything was a misunderstanding and hinting that perhaps they had been misinterpreted. No regrets, no responsibility, just a hasty, botched attempt at damage control, and it completely failed. Instead of the typical sarcasm and sass, spectators noticed awkward pauses, trembling voices, and forced grins. Sunny's laughter abruptly stopped, as did their smug smirks and snarky remarks. Instead, they were replaced by tense looks and tension that could be sliced with a knife. Whoopi's tone was wobbly at first. I believe that everyone needs to back off because there has been a lot of needless animosity. And, to be honest, this isn't beneficial for anyone. It wasn't as bold. Before, Whoopi sounded as though she was attempting to discreetly retract everything. But at that point, the audience wasn't buying it. The harm had already been done. And then came Joy, the same woman who had dismissed the case as a prank, suddenly shouting louder than any joke. But she no longer used sarcasm or jokes. Joy said, "I don't know why this has to go so far," while looking tensely into the camera. "Can't we just sit down like adults and talk this out?" It was a complete 180 from her fiery, unfiltered Joy, and the public could tell she was clearly cracking under pressure and that she wasn't alone. Sunny Holston, who is often calm and collected, was shaken as she leaned forward and spoke slowly, picking her words carefully. "Karoline," she said, "if you're watching, I truly believe there's a way to settle this without dragging it through court. Maybe it's time we all found some common ground." The same women who had ridiculed Karoline, called her crazy, and laughed at the lawsuit were now offering her a hand in marriage on national television. But let's face it, it wasn't about peace. Rather, it was about surviving behind the scenes. ABC's legal staff had been working non-stop to present top executives with the facts if this case proceeded. It would not only be a legal matter, it would be a full-scale conflict and a public catastrophe that could destroy ABC from the inside out. The damage wasn't limited to the hosts, it was about to erupt. The darkest closets on ABC internal correspondence, private consultations, and remarks made off-air. All of it could be brought to light, everything the public was never supposed to hear or see, and the hosts themselves were now under fire. Every casual joke and sarcastic jab at Karoline that they had assumed were innocuous could be subpoenaed and replayed in a courtroom, with no PR gimmick, just raw footage and receipts for the world to judge. So, what did they do? They quickly changed the script, replacing the smug eye rolls with sad eyes, shaky voices, and a sudden let's-all-get-along attitude. Even the studio audience could sense the change. The laughs sounded hollow, the banter flat, and the fearless, sassy energy was gone. The hosts, who had previously made fun of Karoline like she was a punchline, were now attempting to play the part of tearful peacemakers. But the internet wasn't having it. According to an insider, the hosts are frantically trying to keep it together on television, but backstage there is complete mayhem. The View was renowned for having been replaced by tension, side glances, and a great deal of worry. Meetings for emergency legal teams, media strategists. When ABC aired the segment, the internet went crazy. Viewers remembered the jokes, the sarcasm, and the mockery, and now all they saw was fear on Twitter or X. The craziest part was that Karoline Leavitt hadn't even clapped back yet. She was letting them twist in the wind. By this point, it was clear that this wasn't just a lawsuit anymore, but rather a battle about power control and who really makes the decisions. Media giants and those courageous enough to call them out had flipped the entire game on The View, and now their empire was collapsing. However, that was only the beginning. TikTok joined the first Whoopi on-air appeal clips, which were later made into hilarious treasure. Under her unsteady delivery, one creative slapped circus music with the phrase, "When your PR team forces you to act humble." Another video showed Joy laughing side by side for a week, then reversing course the following week with the statement, "When your lawyer actually reads the lawsuit." Even ABC's official Instagram post was criticized by the harsh remark, "This isn't empathy, this is panic." Crocodile tears should have considered that before you ran your mouth. One person remarked in response to another, even devoted followers weren't buying it. Everything seemed phony, it was too late to make any changes, and there were memes everywhere. A sweaty Whoopi was seen sitting in a mock courtroom in one widely shared photo with the remark, "Me realizing defamation lawsuits are actually real." Another meme featuring Sunny Hostin clutching a law book called How Not to Get Sued 101 went viral, but this time conservative media took over. Fox News broadcast a multi-part series titled The View Unravels, in which legal experts dissected every dramatic change, anxious look, and frantic plea. The hosts were criticized by the Daily Wire for their haughtiness and hypocrisy, and they were alarmed when the joke ended. In a YouTube video dubbed The View's Pathetic Damage Control Attempt, which received over 2 million views in a single day, the lawyer who created it dissected the creator's body language, word choice, and timing before coming to the conclusion that The View collapses under legal pressure. Even though independent creators were going, the public had already made up their minds. The View's credibility was destroyed. The internet saw right through it, and no PR gimmick could fix the issue. This wasn't about justice, it was about avoiding a lawsuit. Karoline Leavitt hadn't even spoken in public yet, but she didn't have to since the hosts were speaking for them out of fear, and their voices were louder than words. Their crown jewel was falling, and this wasn't just a headline. ABC's legal team was in a bind, and executives were divided between trying to reach an agreement behind closed doors or going all out and preparing for a courtroom war. This wasn't just bad press. It was a full-blown crisis that threatened the show's survival. Audiences were declining, sponsors were leaving, and ABC's top executives were in a tailspin. If Karoline Leavitt's $800 million lawsuit went to trial, it wouldn't just be a PR disaster. It could reveal everything, including behind-the-scenes video, private emails, and closed-door meetings. It could also destroy careers. The woman they laughed at was now in control, and Karoline remained silent while it all happened. She didn't even need to say a word. Her desperate apology and awkward turn only strengthened her case. The View, once ABC's crown jewel, was now crumbling under the pressure. The internet went crazy, and ABC lost control of the story. If this goes to court, as indications suggest it will, things could get out of hand and go on for months or even years. The longer it goes on, the more scandals surface and the more the empire falls apart. Will The View survive, or is Karoline Leavitt going to pull off the most shocking takedown in TV history? Please share your thoughts in the comments section, and remember to like, share, and subscribe. If this goes to court, trust us, the drama is just beginning. See you next time.